the no-fly zone over Ukraine to protect our civilians from air bombings. Shelter the sky, Ukraine can handle the rest. 74% Americans today support the no-fly zone. Hopefully, the loud voice will be heard at the White House and in Congress. We are asking for all Russian banks to be disconnected from SWIFT completely. We are asking for a complete embargo on Russian oil and gas. Without this help, Ukraine will struggle, but I'm sure we'll persevere. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! Let us now pay homage to the United States of America.
That's the long version.
Let me pass the word to Commissioner Joe Carollo, Chairman of the Bayfront Park Management Trust. Previously, Mr. Carollo served as mayor for 2 terms. We thank him for helping us organizing this anti-war mega rally at Bayfront Park. Mr. Carollo, the floor is all yours.
Good afternoon. I am truly moved and so proud to be here with Ukrainians that have the courage that so few have shown in this 21st century. You Ukrainians here throughout the world, but especially those that are fighting for freedom in Ukraine, are the example of how America was founded. Let me begin by giving you at least some good news in the middle of so much tragedy. As we stand here today, I will tell you something that hasn't been announced yet. At least I don't believe it's gotten out yet. Ukraine has been delivered numerous additional Turkish TB2 drones so they could fight and blow those damn Russian convoys into hell. But we know that's not enough. Nowhere near enough. But I want to, if you indulge me, read to you something, and at the end you'll see why I want to read this, of how America was founded. And you will see the similarities with your people inside Ukraine fighting for freedom today. In the Declaration of Independence, when the United States of America was founded, there were 56 individuals that signed that declaration. They signed in the declaration that they would pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for the freedom of the new country that they were building, America. What happened to those 56 individuals during the War of Independence? Well, 5 of the signers were captured by the British at the time and killed as traitors. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons fighting for America's freedom. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 additional of the 56 died while fighting for America's independence. What kind of men were these? 24 were lawyers and jurists. 11 were merchants. 9 were farmers and large plantation owners. Men of means, well, educated. But they signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that the penalty would be death if they would be captured. One of them, Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw all of his ships swept by the seas as the British Navy then sunk them. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags, penniless. Thomas the King was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward. Soldiers looted the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Yannette, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over his family home and was serving as the headquarters for the British Army then. He quietly went to General George Washington and urged him to open fire on his home. The home was destroyed and Nelson died bankrupt. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife and she died within a few months. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and grist mill were laid to waste. For more than a year, he lived in the forests and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and children vanished. A few weeks later, He died from exhaustion and heartbroken. Norris and Livingston, two others at the time, suffer similar fates. Such were the stories and sacrifices of the signers, of the heroes of the American Revolution. These were not wild-eyed rebel-rousers, ruffians. They were not Nazis. They were soft-spoken men of means and education. They had security, but they valued liberty and freedom. Standing tall, straight and unwavering, they pledged for the support of this declaration with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. Indeed, as I've described to you, many of them lost their lives. Many of them lost all their wealth, their property. Many lost sons and family. But not one, not a single one of the 56 lost their sacred honor. And that is where America has gone astray today in Washington. They've forgotten the foundation of America, the values that are being kept alive today by the Ukrainian freedom fighters in Ukraine, that are giving up their lives, are giving up their fortune, but never will they give up their sacred honor. And this is why the world has to applaud the Ukrainian people. The world has to applaud President Zelensky, because they are showing the courage that has been lacking for a long time in our Western countries. They are the ones that are standing up for all of us in America, Western Europe, and the free world. Many years ago, more years than I would like to remember, there was a young boy, 6 years of age, that was put into an airplane for the first time in his life to be sent to the United States by his parents. They would rather risk never seeing him ever again, but to see their son grow up in freedom. They did that because similar people like Putin, communists, a word that we're not supposed to say anymore, but communists, yes, the worst type and form of oppression that the world has ever known. Communists had taken over that 6-year-old's country. Communists that were being supported and financed and protected by Russians, not the Russian people, Russians like Putin back then. That 6-year-old boy was able to grow up in freedom because of the sacrifice that his parents were willing to make. He never forgot why he came to the United States and the reason why his parents sent him there. And throughout the decades, fought in every way that he could for freedom and in support of countries like Ukraine. That little boy grew up to become a city commissioner in Miami multiple times, mayor of Miami, twice, vice mayor of Miami, a city manager, the head of the Mayor's Summit of the Americas, the organization of big city mayors of the whole hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere. That little boy stands with you here today as an old man, remembering what you are going through. And this is why that little boy here today, an old man, stands with Ukraine, stands for freedom. Ukraine will triumph. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Ukraine will triumph. And I will tell you why Ukraine will triumph. Because Ukraine has something that war criminal Putin never has had, never will have. Ukraine has God beside it. I know that it's difficult when you see the pictures that you're seeing, when you're getting the phone calls, the text, the information coming from Ukraine. But I say this to you, everybody was telling you that in 2 days, no more than 3, Ukraine would fall. Well, we are now entering the 11th day in Ukraine, it's that night there. And Ukraine still stands. It is the Russians that are being stopped. And they're being stopped because God is with Ukraine. And it is Ukrainians that are dying, spilling their bloods, splitting their families for America, for Western Europe, for the free world. Our president says that we put some strong sanctions. Well, I'm going to tell you the reality of these sanctions. The reality of these sanctions is that it's a lot of cheap political talk. And I'm going to tell you why. When this administration, and I want you all to understand that I hold a position that's nonpartisan, and I've kept myself very much nonpartisan. But I have to speak and say the truth. When this administration took over last January, the previous administration left a sizable amount of dollars that was approved and supposed to go to Ukraine immediately in military equipment that Ukraine needed. And frankly, it still was not enough. This administration refused to let it go. Why? Because they claimed they didn't want to antagonize Mr. Putin. And they kept holding it back because they did not want to antagonize Mr. Putin. Well, Mr. Putin, without being antagonized, went in to try to take over Ukraine. So, if we would have given a lot of this equipment before, things would have got even worse for Mr. Putin's army. The so-called embargo, sanctions, as they're called, on Russia, let me give you the reality of that. If you don't cut the pipe of dollars going to Russia from America and Western Europe, it's a joke. Oil alone, we are providing today, the United States, over $8 billion a year in our money to Russia y buying Russian oil. Russian oil that we do not need, because in January of last year, until this administration stopped a lot of our drilling and a lot of the oil that we had in America alone in the pipeline from Canada, we were more than self-sufficient. The reason that I heard today before coming here from the White House that they don't want to cut buying Russian oil is because Americans are going to have to pay a higher price. But why did they care about Americans paying a higher price last January when they stopped so much of our oil from being produced here? We don't need to buy Russian oil, and I guarantee you the vast majority of Americans like me would rather pay a higher price for oil and anything else in order to help Ukraine be free and help ourselves stay free. Let's now go to Western Europe. Western Europe buys 50% of all the oil that Russia produces, to the tune of over $32 billion a year. 32 from Western Europe, 8 from America. That's over $40 billion that we are giving them. It is the West that's financing Putin's war machine, Putin's criminals that he's sending. It is the West, America and Europe. We need to stop that. And by the way, I'm not even including the billions that Europe is buying in natural gas. We can replace that for Europe through our friends in the Middle East, through Israel with natural gas, through our own natural gas. America is the world's #1 natural gas producer. Europe does not need, nor America needs, to be buying Russian gas. And
Bendiciones, Carly.
the reason why January of last year, the
Saludos, Manuel
administration
Castro, a Leila,
did not want to send
Palomita,
the weapons that
Guaceruca,
had been
Maxwell,
approved by the previous administration to
Nica.
Ukraine was because they didn't want to antagonize Putin. Well,
estamos apoyando aquí a nuestros hermanos
imagine what's going
ucranianos.
to get him more mad. If we were to take all his money that we find in banks, or having sent military aid to Ukraine a year ago. Obviously, they have no intentions of freezing a penny that they would find of Putin's own money anywhere. So when I hear sanctions, put sanctions with a bite. Put sanctions where they will make a difference. Now, I'm going to go over areas where difference can be made. And I am surprised that the world's strongest military, with the best generals, had not figured this out way before. I'm sure they did. But I'm also sure that the politicians were the ones that didn't want to do anything. We need to cancel all Visa and MasterCards inside Russia, so that the Russian people can start seeing what Putin has also cost them. We need to now, not tomorrow, not a week from now, to send more drones to the Ukrainian military. And yes, we need to get the MiGs that were left by Russia in our eastern countries of Europe, paint them with the Ukrainian Air Force signs and Ukrainian flag, and send them to Ukraine to be used against the Russians. And frankly, Frankly, we need to get the MiGs that we have in the United States that are used to train our pilots in combat here in the United States, that we have a lot of them, send them to Ukraine so they could be used in the fight against the Russians. Now, my understanding is that Poland, at least you have one country that was willing to do it. But because of the United States and Germany, it hasn't happened. But that is needed now. Frankly, as much as I would want our country to step in, Ukrainians have shown that they have the courage, the guts, the ability to defeat the Russian army on their own. All that Ukrainians need are the weapons to fight with. Lastly, if we need to send our own pilots or NATO pilots to handle the drones, fly the MiGs, we should do that. And I'm going to tell you a part of history.
It's not necessary. There are enough pilots that know how to do it.
But if you don't have enough, we should send them. And I'm going to tell you why. During the Korean War, when the world was facing Russia and North Korea, it was Russian pilots that were flying the North Korean MiGs. We knew it, they knew it. Did we go to World War III then? No. And we're not going to go to World War III now, because Putin knows that he will be the first one to go right into hell if that would happen. So that would never happen. This is what gangsters, this is what criminals do when they find weakness in individuals. And sadly, after what he saw in Afghanistan, he saw weakness in us. And he thought that he could do this to Ukraine. The one thing that he did not count on was the will, the courage of the Ukrainian people. The same courage, the same will, and the same belief in God that the signers of the Declaration of Independence for America had. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case in Washington. Washington has become a very different place today. Lastly, what we need to approve for Ukraine are anti-missile batteries to be able not only to knock off Russian MiGs at a higher altitude, but batteries to also protect from incoming missiles, cruise missiles and other missiles. And these are anti-defensive weapons. These are not weapons of aggression. And for thousands of volunteers from the United States and across the world and Western Europe that want to come in and help Ukrainians fight for their freedom and theirs. We should help establish international freedom brigades of volunteers that would go and help Ukrainians also fight. If Putin could send a bunch of criminals from Chechnya to Ukraine, we should certainly allow international freedom brigades of freedom fighters from across the world that want to go and help Ukraine. Tonight, you are going to see numerous buildings that are going to be lit up here in Miami. And I invite all of you this coming Thursday at 10 in the morning to Miami City Hall that's in Coconut Grove, because we're going to be presenting some resolutions that we feel every city in America is going to follow through, that would hopefully encourage our government to follow through and act upon it. If I may now, I'd like to introduce someone who also feels very strongly about freedom in Ukraine, our Mayor of Miami-Dade County, Mayor Levine Cava.
Thank you so much to our commissioner for his stirring words, for his history lesson, for his personal commitment and dedication. Slava Ukrainia. Slava Ukrainia. I want to thank so much Florida for Ukraine Group for bringing us together tonight. This is such an important rally, such an important message for our community and for the whole world. I'm proud to stand with elected officials like Commissioner Joe Carollo. I believe Mayor Francis Suarez, City of Miami will be here. Thank you so much to them and to all of us. We are all united. Auntie, thank you. And to you who live in this area, who are from Ukraine or are from Russia supporting Ukraine, or who are from anywhere supporting Ukraine and Ukraine's fight, we are together with the Ukrainian people. Thank you. The unthinkable has happened. The unthinkable, the devastating invasion of a free, democratic country by a hostile neighbor. It has happened in our time. It is unbelievable. It is unacceptable. It is intolerable. We will not accept this. We will work together. Thank you. We will work together against this violent invasion at the hands of Vladimir Putin. We will not stand for it. We will stand together. This is not the first time we know that Russia is interfering with democracies around the world. We see it in our hemisphere. The people of Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, they have lived under authoritarian regimes that have been propped up by the Russian state. And we stand in unity. Patria y vida. So we are here today, loud and clear. We will not stand for destruction and death. We stand for democracy. We stand for self-determination, liberty for all people everywhere, and we will defend democracy everywhere. This past week, I took a few steps. They were symbolic but important steps to support the Ukrainian people and to pressure the Russian government to end this invasion of a sovereign nation. On Monday, we lit up our county landmarks, yellow and blue, the colors of the flag. I also, it's been all week, it's all week. You'll see it tonight as we stand here, the beautiful colors, yellow and blue. And I ordered all of our county departments to review every contract, every single contract in Miami-Dade County. We want to make sure that no Russian oligarchs, no Russian war machine are supported with our county dollars. We will not be complicit in this violence. We will make sure that our dollars do not go to support an aggressor, a violator of human rights and of freedom and democracy. I stand with President Biden in his decision to ban the Russian flights within American airspace. In fact, we reached out. I directed our airport director to reach out to the Federal Aeronautic Administration and ask and say we must close the airspace. And the next day, it was closed.